Okay, good morning, everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jeff York. I'm the marketing manager here at Scytec. This morning's webinar is going to be the third part in a three-part series dedicated to the basically the startup and initial, getting going with DataXchange. So this morning's title is Continuous Improvement with Scytec DataXchange. And the first thing that we are going to be discussing is some features inside of Data Display. And for those of you that are unaware, Data Display is our web-based browser reporting tool that is a more streamlined feature for what was historically the desktop version of DataXchange, the machine monitoring platform. So some of the things that we went over last month for Data Display and really kind of the startup process in general for machine monitoring would be defining areas for improvement in your shop floor, basically the reasons why you're starting up with machine monitoring, machine communication, so really how DataXchange talks to your guys' shop floor equipment and pulls data from them, the features and licensing levels associated with DataXchange, DataXchange users and groups and shift groups. So that's kind of how you do the initial sorting of who uses DataXchange, data storage and security, machine statuses and how to define them and how to make that or those statuses meaningful to your shop floor. The DataXchange applications, including the desktop version and Data Display, which I will be discussing here next. Their differences in really who should be using them. And then we ended with the initial charts and dashboards to get started with machine monitoring. Now, with last month's webinars and all of our webinars, you can find them on our website as well as our YouTube channel, and you will be able to find this one there as well. And for just about everything that we have covered so far and will be covering today, there are individual webinars that go over them in better detail and more depth online already, and there will be in the future. So where we will be continuing today inside of Data Display is we are going to be discussing saved and scheduled charts, the real-time dashboard that we did not discuss last month, which is the real-time list, the real-time viewer charts and views inside of Data Display, and the manage options inside of Data Display, as well as exports, the Excel exports. And I will also have demonstrations for all of the above. So first, what I'd like to discuss is the real-time list. And the real-time list is a real-time dashboard that is a more streamlined version of the equipment view, which I went over last month, with the ability to filter by specific cycle times, unplanned and planned downtimes, and specific data set columns. Now you can show specific cycle times, specific unplanned and planned downtimes, and you can filter by machine statuses, and you can make up whatever machine status that you would like. So just to go over a few that are kind of common, you could have parts per hour, scrap notes, ideal setup times, program numbers, start times, previous downtimes, feed rate overrides, and more. And at Scytec, we advocate to filter machine statuses that are important to your role. And you can also change the sort order and column order and ascending or descending. There's a lot of different configurations that you can do with the real-time list. Next up, we have the RTV views that are now available inside of the Data Display Launchpad. So this was a somewhat recent feature that we added. So all of your previously created user views and group views inside of the RTV can now be found at the bottom of the Launchpad inside of Data Display. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with what the RTV is, it is a series of views that show you different dashboards and charts that you can set to rotate. That at Scytec, we advocate for manufacturers to have on a TV that could be out on your shop floor. We see them hanging from the ceilings. We see them in lunchrooms. We see them in executive suites and stuff like that, training rooms, etc. So that you're basically always aware of what is going on in real time out on your shop floor by showing you specific machine statuses. Also, I'm going to be going over saved and scheduled charts. This is another newer feature that was released last year, and an update that we also have a dedicated webinar on as well. And I'm going to show you, kind of how to set these up and where you can find these. These are also on the launch pad as well. And what's nice about saved and scheduled charts, it's really just kind of a time-saving feature where, what I will be showing you is how you can filter out a bunch of machine statuses and things like that. You can save all that time to have to just, not have to go through all that. And then with a scheduled chart, you can have those sent to you on a recurring basis. So if you have like a production meeting every morning at 7:30, you can go into that prepared with a scheduled chart. And then finally, on the data display side of things, I'm going to show you the management options where you can get things like a global view of the company assigned, saved, and scheduled charts, how you can set up your data display when logging in, basically what that landing page will be, and also the ability to export charts as an image. So from here, I'm going to, and also we have the ability to, for all your charts and dashboards, we have the ability to export those as an Excel document. And in the future, we are going to have a report viewer, much like what is in the desktop version of DataXchange for your Excel reports. So from here, I'm going to do a demonstration of just about everything I covered. So I'm going to switch over to data display. Now you can find everything related to DataXchange and data display at dx.scytec.com, where you can find the data display icon to launch that. You can also have the DataXchange client install, as well as the mobile applications for download as well too. And you can also find our mobile applications on the Google Play and Apple Store as well. So to access data display, you will go down here and click the data display. You will enter in your account information and password, which will take you to this launch pad. So the first thing I'd like to do is go down here to the real-time list. And as I mentioned earlier, last month, I went in detail about the equipment view. So click on the equipment list here. And on the left-hand side, we have the ability to basically sort which machinery we'd like to see. So I'm going to keep this kind of simple for you guys. I'm just going to select about 3 different pieces of equipment here from our Fort Collins plant. So we have a PLC-enabled device, a FANUC 31i, a Makino, and a Mazak. And I want to filter out all sorts of specific things like high overrides, low overrides, as well as unplanned downtimes, specific planned downtimes. And then below here for our columns, we have the ability to have all sorts of things shown in this real-time list. I'd like to see some specific equipment statuses, as well as their specific duration that they have been in that status, as well as things like good parts and parts per hour. And we have all sorts of things that, like I said, these are all user definable. So you can set these up. And I went over, just a handful of them earlier. So let's go ahead and populate this dashboard by going up here and clicking this. And you can see in a very, streamlined manner, the equipment name, the specific equipment status that it is in. So our FANUC machine right now has been in a unknown downtime for 5 minutes. It has not produced any good parts. However, our Mazak, Makino, and PLC has been cutting. Normally, it is in a normal cycle. They have been in that cycle for close to 45 minutes for 2 of them and close to 2.5 hours for the other, producing 9 and 16 good parts. And due to the times that we have set earlier for what we would like to see them producing, they are currently meeting that under for the Mazak, which is only at 41% of its parts per hour, and the PLC is over that as well. And we just watched right now that the FANUC is back into cutting, so it is in a high override. So it's not exactly what we'd like to see, but it is cutting in a high override. We're going to go back out here to our dashboard. Next, I'm going to show the RTV charts. So I'm going to show you two of them here. The first I'm going to show you is an alarm, and I'm going to show you how to all set this up here in a second. It takes a second here to populate, but this is, what you would have out on a TV in your shop floor, and this is an alarm view. So you can see the amount of alarms that have happened, the equipment that is affected, such as the Mazak. It was in an external alarm. We have the alarm code. We have a description of that alarm. So it was a high pressure alarm, the duration of it, how many times it has happened, the accumulation of those times added up. And then below that, we can see we have two different Paretos for the occurrence by time, or I'm sorry, the alarm by occurrence, and then also the alarm Pareto by the time. So if you look over here on the left-hand side, you will see your heavy hitters, and that is, what is affecting your shop floor the most. So we have this alarm code down here, which was the one at the top, this high pressure alarm. That is currently what your shop floor is dealing with the most. Next, I'm going to go over here and show you an overhead view, the shop floor layout. This is a very popular RTV view. And as I mentioned, these are all created inside of the desktop version. So this is an overhead view of what your shop floor would look like. And you can use any picture. We do advocate for a top-down view. And you set these up by basically drawing an outline over the equipment. And then that will then show you the statuses going on inside your shop floor in real time. So we have a Makino down here that is in a normal cycle. And then next to that, we have a unknown downtime for a Mori machine that has been in that unknown downtime for 5 minutes. And then in the top right, we have a Doosan that has been in a low override for close to an hour. So those are just a few of the views that you can have. If you look up here in the top ribbon bar, you will see the description of the view types as well as a number. That shows you how many screens that there are in that view. So with this shop floor layout, we are looking at 1. And for the alarm view that I showed earlier, we see the number 3 showing that there is 3 different screens for that view. So I'm going to go back out here to our launch pad. Next, I'd like to discuss the save chart option. So with a normal, we'll just say a summary chart here that you could go, and you can do all the filtering to show, what equipment that you want. At the very bottom here, you can save that chart. So you didn't have to go through all that filtering again. Go back out here to the launch pad. That will then populate down here. So let's just say I want to check out an equipment status summary for the previous day. I will click on this, and it'll go and show me that chart right off the bat, showing me all the equipment statuses for that chart in that time frame that I requested. Now, to get that chart sent to me on a recurring basis, we will go back to the save chart, go all the way down to the bottom, where you can do things like copy the URL to this. You could put that in an email. You could send that to somebody. And then you have your save chart options here where you can save that and have that apply to different user groups, such as all DataXchange users, administrators, manager levels, that kind of stuff. And then for the scheduled chart option, you need to make sure that it is enabled, and you can do the same kind of filtering for user groups, what day, what time, and then when you get sent or when you save it, it will send that to the user group that you have selected. Now we also have our export options here, and this is basically just a ability to get in an Excel document what is shown in a graph form. So if you come up here to, we'll just choose equipment status, you can download this, and this will populate inside of a Excel document, giving you a numerical value for all of the machine statuses in a given and requested section of time, as well as the equipment that you want as well too. So it's not as pretty as the visual options for there, but it is good for auditing and stuff like that too. And then finally, I would like to discuss the management side of the data display. So what you can do inside of this manage option area is you can decide what the landing page is when you log into. And you have three different options. You can do the launch pad, which is kind of what we advocate for everybody to start with. You can also log into different RTV screens. So like I showed you, the alarm view or the shop floor layout, and then also your two real-time equipment views, including the equipment list, which I just showed, and the equipment view from last month. As I also mentioned, there is a global view where you can see all of the different company assigned save charts and then your schedule charts options there as well. So that about does it for the data display side of things. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here, and we are going to continue on with the desktop version. And where we'll be continuing with that is I'm going to show you the RTV Designer and some tips for that, the reports that you can get inside of the desktop versions, how to historically modify data and other things such as part counts, OEE charts, and our deployment options. So what I'd like to go over first is the modifying collected equipment status data. And you can do a couple things with this in the desktop versions. So first you can choose your equipment, and then you can choose the date and time range and hit get data. And then from there you can add, modify, or remove historical data and also add notes. You can also historically modify part counts, parts start and stop times, as well as work order. And the modified data that you go in and screw around with in this also leaves an exportable report, much like I just showed you with those Excel reports for down the line auditing and stuff like that. And you can also just leave what is basically a paper trail for the modified data. Next, I'd like to discuss the RTV Designer. So I showed you what the RTV charts are. Soon, there will be the option to do this stuff inside of Data Display, but historically, the RTV Designer has only been in the desktop version of DataXchange. And this is how you will go about creating those views for your TVs out on your shop floor and stuff like that to show data that is meaningful to you. So the RTV Designer is the ability to take charts and dashboards and make configured views that can be displayed on a television screen and then set to rotate at the intervals that you determine. And it is designed and configured to make the data meaningful to your shop floor experience. So what is important to your day-to-day operations can be showed with the RTV and the RTV Designer. Now, some tips and just kind of some facts about the RTV and Designer. And a limited amount of screens can be created. So you're not limited to what is just up there in that ribbon bar with the number and the associated views with that. You can create a number of screens. The rotation settings is meaningful to your shop floor based off of, you can pause, play, go backwards, forwards. You can set intervals that are different from each other. You can also have an auto login, as I showed you with Data Display, where you can just log right in and take you right to the RTV. There are the ability to have your screens for the logged in user, as well as group screens for, different employment levels and groups. You can customize that ribbon bar to show the most important and necessary RTV views. And when you create a view inside the RTV, you can also share that view with another user or employment levels as well. And when you share that view with them, they do get an email notification that they have received a view that can be shared with them. Also, I'm going to discuss OEE, and the OEE status grid displays ability, performance, quality, and the overall equipment effectiveness for individual pieces of equipment. The blue dot that you see here above all of these little columns here, this is what you set your OEE to be. And this can be defined under the Manage tab, metrics and metric definitions. And you can find the OEE chart in both Data Display and the desktop version as well. Now, to make sure that you guys get the most accurate OEE, and this is something that separates DataXchange from other machine monitoring platforms, is your planned downtimes can be incorporated into what goes into your OEE. So we'll take something like a setup. That setup, when you go above what is, ideally defined as your setup time, that will then negatively affect your OEE. But for a planned downtime, that goes into your OEE and does not take away from it, so that you're getting your most accurate utilization possible. Finally, I'm also going to discuss our deployment options. This is how we, set up data display and where your information is stored. So the most popular is our commercial cloud, and that is the easiest way to get connected and start monitoring your machines. The commercial cloud offering is hosted by Amazon Web Services and provides quick and easy implementation, low overhead costs, and you don't have to worry about providing your own web or database server. We have clients that have been getting set up in anywhere from 10 minutes to about a half hour under the commercial cloud. It's a very easy setup process. Now, we also have our DataXchange Secure Cloud, which runs in the Amazon Web Services Gov Cloud. And this is just providing an extra layer of security for those of you that have ITAR requirements as well as FedRAMP. It adheres to a wide variety of compliance standards. And then also, for those of you that request it, we also do have an on-premise option, and that keeps all the data stored inside of your corporate network. And at any time, you can switch between any of these deployment options with no loss in any of the historical data that you have. So from here, I'm going to do a demonstration for what I just discovered or covered in the desktop version side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the DataXchange desktop version. And the first thing that I'm going to discuss is, as we talked about, the ability to modify historical data. Now, the first thing I'm just going to show you, and you can apply this information to the other things under this tab, I'm going to show you how to historically modify equipment status, and that can be applied to part counts as well as work orders. So let's click on this. And I'm going to show you how to modify historical equipment, or machine statuses for historical equipment. So we have first up here our drop-down list where we can select from any of the machinery that we have in our DataXchange. So I'm going to select this 31i, this FANUC machine, and I want to go back to something yesterday. So I want to select the last 24 hours here from yesterday to today. We're going to go here and get data. And we'll say that at a certain given point of time that we had something that was listed as in cycle that was not in cycle. So we can go down here to modify, and we can change that general status cycle to being in an unplanned downtime. Have it start and specific action. So what was the reason for that unplanned downtime? Let's say that there was a maintenance issue. Now we have then successfully went back and historically modified that data. The next thing I'm going to show you here is the RTV designer. So we go over here and click on RTV. Now, at the bookends of this little ribbon bar, we have My Screens and the Group Screens. So My Screens is going to apply to the logged in users, and Group Screens are for, different employment levels and things like that. So what I want to show you here first is the ability to modify a screen. As I discussed earlier, you can see inside the ribbon bar the different views that we have and how many screens are in those views. So I want to show you how to modify and add to a screen. So here we have all the different RTV views that we have. For the special one for today's demonstration, I have a demo view for webinars. We go down here to modify and who this all can apply to. So I want this to apply to all DataXchange users. I will click on next. Now, what you see here over here on the left-hand column is how this gets split up. So for right now, I have two different views showing me an alarm Pareto and equipment status summary. So let's say I want to add a alarm grid. I will click here to split horizontally, and I will get the option to assign a view. So from here, we have our list of different views that we can have inside of this RTV view. So I want to have a alarm grid I will click enter. From there, I can then configure the view. And I want to have all the equipment that is available in our 3 different Colorado plants. So we have our Colorado Springs location with all the equipment, the Denver equipment as well, and then our Fort Collins plant. So I will click enter. I will then save this view. And if we come up here to display, I can then display this view, hit display now, and there we go. We now have our custom configured RTV view with the alarm Pareto, the alarm grid, as well as the equipment status summary chart. So one of the things I talked about as well here is we can also do the rotation settings. If you come up here and click on the options icon up here, over on the right, we can see that we have the rotation settings for the selected equipment. So when I come up here and hit play, it's going to show me this equipment status summary for 15 seconds, a timeline view for 30 seconds, a downtime detail for 15, the same thing with alarms. And this is all configurable. You can set this up however you would like to. Like I said, the point of the RTV is to make the data meaningful to your shop floor. So as I just showed you as well inside of the data display application, the same thing can be applied here for reports, where you have the ability to take different charts and things like part counts, average operation times, and export those into Excel's and CSV files. So this is very similar to what I just showed you. Finally, one of the last charts that I'd like to show you is the OEE chart. And you do a lot of the same filtering as well here. So I want to show you a few different pieces of machinery in the last day from our Fort Collins plant and whether or not those are hitting our utilization goals. And I will describe here after this, when I'm done, how to kind of set those metric data for everything. So right now we are looking at basically the if you look over here on the right, the color coordinations for availability, performance, quality, as well as the overall equipment effectiveness, and then followed by the targets that we have set. So we can see our availability for this Makino, our performance, our quality, and then our overall OEE, and then the targets that we have set for that as well. So we set the target, to be at 81%. It is not meeting that. So this is something, very helpful for determining the, what's going on out in your shop floor and if you are making those demands. So I'd like to show you here real quick about where you can define all this stuff. And if you go over to the Manage tab under Metrics, you can set your defaults for things like the equipment, your part defaults, your ideal times, and the metric definitions and metric targets is where you will set these targets for your OEE. So if we look over here under utilization, we can see where we will set those targets for everything, and then also the color coordination for those. So that about wraps it up for the demonstration side of things here. One thing I'd like to go over here real quick, go back to my PowerPoint. Last week, we had a DataXchange update. Now, if you have given us your email and set up as a user, you should be getting an update email that has links to where you can find what is in that update. But I just wanted to go over a few quick ways of how you can, find all this stuff out on your own. So on our Scytec.com website, you will see a little banner up at the top in this little green bar, where if you click on that, it'll take you to when it is and what is in the update. We also have a web page that has a posting for when the update occurs, what is in there as well. And then also on our Scytec University, our help website, you will see a tab on the left-hand side that goes over a list of everything that is included in an update. So as I mentioned just a second ago, we have a help website that can be found at dxhelp.scytec.com. Over here on the left-hand side, as I mentioned, you will find the release notes and the historical release notes for finding everything as well too. There's a ton of very helpful there's a ton of helpful things in the Scytec University website where you can break things down into tutorials, how different roles can utilize data exchange, as well as scenarios for data exchange use. Next month, we are going to be doing an ODI webinar about how you can master that. ODI is a feature that is on our silver licensing level. Now, from here, I'd like to open it up for any questions, and also something else I would like to discuss here as well. This was the third part of a kind of just getting started with data exchange. In June, we are planning on having an open forum with all of our data exchange users. This is where we would really like to hear from you guys in terms of things you would like to see covered in webinars, as well as requested features from you all. I sent out a survey a couple of weeks ago, asking how things are going, what you would like to see, what works, what you would like to see improved upon. We're going to be having an open forum maybe sometime in June to ask more of those questions as well, where we'll answer them and help you guys out as well. But for right now, I would like to open the floor. There is a little Zoho heads-up display where you can ask any questions that you would like. So feel free to ask any questions about what I covered in this webinar today, or anything that you would like to see covered in that open forum, or what you would like to see down the line. So I'm going to give it probably about 3 minutes here. Feel free to put those questions into the Q&A section of that Zoho heads-up display, and we will be answering them here probably at 10:40 Mountain Standard Time, or Mountain Daylight Time. So it does look like we have a first question that just came in, and somebody asked what still needs to be covered. And I guess they just give you a kind of rundown of what could and should be covered. And these are going to be more these aren't going to be high-level data exchange features. Like I said, this 3-part series that we just concluded with today was meant to be a kind of startup guide for data exchange. I think somewhere down the line at the end of the year, we'll probably have another 3-part series where we discuss things such as the notifications, the viewing opportunities with data exchange, as well as things such as, and I kind of briefly glanced over this very quickly, with metric definitions, ideal times and part uploads, as well as part counts, scrap, Pareto charts, target utilization, and the operation times are all things that we could probably be discussing later on down the line. So we also have Chris Hamlin here as well. He is our product specialist. Chris, we have another question coming in. So for RTV on data display, where can you set up the rotation interval?
Yeah, that's done under the RTV settings. So under when you're actually on the RTV tab.
One more question, and what is going to be continually added to data display? The plan is, and for the foreseeable future, we are going to be taking features that were historically found inside of the desktop version and adding them to data display, such as I mentioned earlier, the RTV designer. And as things continue to progress, we're going to be adding more things into data display, as well as a export viewer that I talked about earlier. So some things are still up in the air, but we do want to see going forward data display being the main form of machine monitoring with Scytec DataXchange, and that the desktop version is going to be for those in your IT and setup departments for the configuration of things.